Behind each face, a family who thought their loved one had been laid to rest, except they weren't. Among them, Danny Middleton, who died at the end of 2023. His body was one of 35 found at Legacy Independent Funeral Directors in Hull in March 2024. Danny's stepdaughter thought he'd been cremated, only to discover months later that he hadn't been.
How did that make you feel?
Sick to the stomach, personally. We'd already had a funeral. We'd already got ashes that we presumed was his. We've put him to rest. We was letting him rest with my mum. Do you know what I mean? It was, and then to say that not only have you not got his ashes, but his body is still there. It's not being touched. His hospital band was still on his wrist.
And then you found out you weren't the only ones affected?
Yeah. To learn that just how many deceased that was in there that had just been left. I personally don't know how anyone could do that. It's really sickening.
1199. I'm arresting you at the current time on suspicion of preventing the lawful and decent burial of multiple dead bodies and fraud by false representation and fraud by abuse of position.
2 years after the investigation into Legacy started, Robert Bush, who ran the company, has now pleaded guilty to all the charges against him, some dating back to 2012. They include 30 counts of preventing a lawful and decent burial, 35 counts of fraud by false representation and theft from 12 charities. Authorities don't know exactly how many people are affected in total, though it's thought to be well into the hundreds.
The damage he has caused to families across our communities is quite possibly irreparable, with so many victims who have suffered and continue to do so. Losing a family member or friend or a loved one and care deeply about can be one of the most traumatic experiences you can go through, and Robert Bush took advantage of this.
Robert Bush stood still in the dock and showed no emotion as 31 charges were read out to him. Relatives of the victims sitting in the public gallery had their eyes fixed on Bush as he responded, each time speaking very quietly to plead guilty. Those families have learned in the hardest possible way that there's no proper regulation of the funeral sector in England and Wales.
This is just the start for us. The start for pushing for legislation to ensure that no funeral director can ever do the same thing. From stealing charity funds at the end of a service, to making sure human cremated remains are returned to grieving families or scattered in a memorial garden, we must ensure none of our loved ones can ever again be held decomposing when indeed families have arranged cremations.
So this is the bandstand where they've been holding vigils.
Local MP and Government Minister Emma Hardy has backed calls for regulation.
This could still be happening elsewhere.
It's astounding that I think most people assume that this industry is regulated. And there's more regulation if you want to set up a cafe. You have to go through various hoops and check your environmental health. There's none when it comes to setting up a funeral directors.
We've seen so many recommendations for the funeral sector to be regulated. When's that going to happen?
Well, I'm determined to see that happen during this Parliament. It's something now deeply personal to me, and I am determined to make sure it happens.
You say this Parliament, that could be 2029. That's too slow, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it all depends on the pace of regulation. I mean, there's never been any regulation whatsoever. So I think it is right that we get this done properly and that it isn't something as a knee-jerk reaction.
They could be doing anything in these funeral places, we don't know.
Do you think you'll be able to move on from this?
Still don't to this day. I've been to a couple of funerals since, but because of what's happened, we was all stood there in the back of my mind going, well, they better be in there.
Why did you do it, Mr. Bush? Why did you do it, Mr. Bush? Robert Bush had nothing to say as he left court. Released on bail, he'll be sentenced at the end of July. This has been a grim case that's betrayed trust in an industry all of us will need to use.